my entitled husband. He tried to kick me out of my house. But little does he know, the deed is in my name, and I've got a little trick up my sleeve that he didn't see coming.
Hey guys, I don't really know what to say. I'm not really sure exactly how I got here, but here I am. These days my life have not really been the best, and I guess I need to place just a vent and talk to somebody. Since I ain't got no family or friends, well, here I am. Where do I even start? Let's see. I guess we can start with my husband of 5 years. Served me with divorce papers tonight during our anniversary dinner. I can't say I wasn't expecting it, but I guess I didn't think that he'd do it on such a day or even this soon. I knew that the spark in our marriage was dying long before today, and I thought I had long come to terms that it would end soon, but it still hurts, you know. This was a man I once thought I'd be spending the rest of my days with. Never would I think this day would ever come, because our romance came so easily. It was everything I've ever wanted. Pure, passionate, perfect. It felt as if he was the final piece of my puzzle, top left corner. As cheesy as that may sound, still, now it's over. It's been over for a while, and I guess I was still in denial. I noticed it, the slow, silent resentment that was building up behind his gaze every time he looked at me. The nights where no matter how much I dressed or how I acted, he would just turn over and go to sleep with his back towards me, facing the wall. Not the least bit interested in communicating or even touching me. Wow. The countless times I'd have to call him for him to even pick up and speak to me just for a moment. The way I have to beg, and I mean beg, to attend functions with him, and to know where he'd be going and for how long he'd actually be away. Well, all that. I admit I slowly grew my own level of resentment, but even then I still tried to make it work. Thinking that as long as he saw I was trying, he tried to be, but, wow, boy, I was wrong. These last few months were when I slowly gave up as there was a change in him, and growing up with a similar family dynamic, I understood the signs very well. They were the signs of a man when he was seeing another, and likely not just a random nightstand as he usually did, but an actual mistress. Somebody that he's been cherishing and valuing the way he should me. The late nights out, the secretive handling of his phone, the quiet smiles, and the calls that he'd be always just stepping out of the room for. Well, everything hurts. It really hurts. Worst was when the insults started coming. I would just nag him, because after years of trying, there's only so much one could take. I purposely began picking arguments, because it seemed like that was the only time he had any emotional reaction to me. They were arguments I never won, as I was never good with words and tit for tat, which meant often he'd be harsh and sharp-tongued, and I'd often just end up weeping by myself in the corner as he left. Where was he going? Obviously his mistress's house. Still, that didn't last for long, and once I overheard him talking about divorce on his phone with who I guessed to be his mistress, I knew I had to move on, and I had to do it fast. So, I started creating my way out, my little escape tunnel. The first thing I knew I had to secure was a place of residency, and I'd grown attached to my current home, so I checked out the deed. Maybe I was a bit vindictive, because I heard him mention to someone about living with them, and it seemed it was referring to our marital home. So, I knew I had to make sure that didn't happen. Once I checked the deed, I also consulted a lawyer, and through him, I learned of the process to change ownership of the deed. It took a nice little sum of money just to get it done, but I did, and well, luckily it came through just in time. Only a week ago, and tonight it came in handy. Because while I spent precious time planning our anniversary dinner, where I wanted to have a genuine conversation as a last-ditch attempt to even see where we went wrong so that I won't repeat it again in any future relationships. My dearest husband had shown up almost 1 hour late, and he did not even sit down. Instead, he dropped the fat old envelope right there on the table in front of me and coldly said, in bold words, "I want a divorce." I wasn't too shocked, as I kind of expected it, just maybe not as it came so soon. Still, I tried to reason with him to ask him why, as I took the envelope and the words that came from his mouth were the ones that really hurt me the most. I'm talking about crushing me. He told me that I was fat, boring, unattractive. How after I lost my mid-20s innocence and attraction, I was just never the same. Saying how he could not even stand to look at me. There were other foul things that dripped out of his mouth, but I would rather not say it just to save the pain. Anyways, after he went through his entire rant, I responded the best that I could, which only seemed to aggravate him a bit until he was full-blown screaming for me to just sign the damn papers and get the heck out of his house, along with how I was unsightly to look at. Now that made me angry, that last little remark, to know that his plan was to not only divorce me after 5 years of marriage, but to also kick me out of the house that we had so many memories in just to start fresh. Still, I wanted to know one thing before I made my final decision, and that's why I had asked him about the assets and the alimony. He even straight up laughed in my face like I was some sort of stupid person. Then he asked me if I was crazy, ranting on how I was a worthless pig that literally sat at home all day doing nothing while he went and busted his behind every day at work. He told me that I'd be the last person to see a penny of all that he worked for, along with other things, before he once again demanded that I sign those papers. I didn't fight him. I read the papers and saw he really intended to leave me absolutely penniless, but I signed. The reason is that the house was worth more than, well, all he had worked in the last 5 years, and it was mine. Once I signed those papers, he ripped them out of my hands, as if they were some rare treasure map, which, well, it hurt. But it also gave me the fuel that ignited what I needed. He'd asked me what my reason was to keep standing there instead of going to pack my stuff, and I just smirked. As I went upstairs, but not for my bag, but instead for his. I packed a single suitcase of his and grabbed the copy of the deed, then went down to him. The look of his face when he saw that the little luggage I had was his. It was funny, yet it was sad, as it showed just how happy he was to get rid of me, and also how eager he was to have everything of mine gone from his place, so I could be replaced, but it wasn't happening. I admit, it gave me some level of pleasure and soothing to my anger and hurt at his betrayal when I threw the suitcase at his feet and the deed on the table, smacked it right there in front of him. He was confused at first when he saw how collected I was, but once he read the deed, his face morphed into all different colors. And I was called a range of slurs, along with accusations and just almost everything an enraged man could do. Learning that his wife had meticulously planned to leave penniless was anything but that, and learning that he had basically been robbed of his life savings, which is our house, because he had paid completely for it. And guys, at this time in the market, it's worth $500,000. I felt so smudged when I reversed his words on him like Uno and told him to get out, threatening to have cops get him out for me if it was refused, and he tried to argue with me, but when I began dialing, he realized I was not playing any games, and he stormed out with the suitcase I prepared. I admit, I smiled for a bit when he left, but afterwards I cried like a little baby, because even though I felt good having that small little victory, it was still so little, compared to the sadness, rage, and betrayal of the 5 years I lost. It was only after that crying and a warm bath that I was able to come here and vent. But hey, this is my story. I'll keep you updated if anything goes down. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. Today's story is a wild ride. Alright, well, I'm just going to tell you right now there's 6 updates. And update number 1 is something you're probably not ready for. Guys, if you're not subscribed to the channel, it helps out me immensely if you do that, and you never miss an update if you're subscribed, so go ahead, click that button, and let's jump into the update. Hey, once again, guys, guess I'm back to vent to the internet since, I have nobody else to vent to. I saw your feedback, and I'm grateful for the support. It pains me to know that there's so many women like myself who experienced what I did. As now, when days have passed and it was, truly set in, my feelings are definitely not the same as before. I had time to think of what would happen and the unfairness, unjustfulness. I can feel it. I realize just how badly I was treated in the last few years, and I don't only feel sadness anymore. Instead, I feel myself wanting to fulfill some type of revenge. I want him to feel at least an ounce of the pain I felt these years. From his mistreatment, manipulation, abuse, infidelity, you name it. I want him to regret doing what he's done to me, as I've been nothing but a good wife to him, and this is how he chose to repay me, huh? By looking down on me, humiliating my name, degrading me, making me feel less than a woman, making me feel as if I am not enough, and walking out on me to be with another woman. I never saw it before, but now when I'm not blinded by my need to fix us and make us work, I realize that all along I was the one putting in the work and putting in the effort. I was the one that always was there, and I just never really got anything. In fact, my husband, looking back at the last few years, has been verbally, emotionally, and financially abusive to me. What I meant is he would call me names, gaslight me, or use a weaponized incompetence when I try to communicate my feelings to him about some of the things he did. He would also limit when and what I spent, which at first wasn't a lot, but as the years went by, he made sure every penny that his financial advisors and other people he hired looked at, brought everything for the house. Well, he had no reason to give me any money of my own. This had caused me to start doing odd jobs. Online was the best, and only now did I realize how messed up that was. As before, I just bought that. It was his money, and he had the right to spend it however he felt or pleased. How stupid was I? Still now, for all that, and the worst of it is, he would be his constant infidelity that I had to turn my blind eye to, thinking that it's okay as long as it's just a random hookup, not a full-blown relationship. He would pay. As just looking how this would blow up in my face. It's just so funny still, but what's funnier is what I plan to do. I'm gonna have my revenge I'm speaking of, but as for now, I did a little research through the things that were left here since he is yet to return for them, and I managed to find a few receipts, along with a laptop I've never even seen him use, and a secondary phone too. I guess that's what he used for his affair. So, what do? I bring it to a specialist, and he plans to break through the coding so that I can get access to whatever has to be inside. Something tells me it's going to be useful in this upcoming revenge. Well, I also rented a car using my savings, which was enough to keep me stable just for a few months. And I used that car to drive to his place. I know, stalking is illegal, but I did what I needed to do. I did what needed to be done, and in doing so, I found out where he was staying. I didn't find much, say, incriminating or damnable information on him, but I'm working hard, and once I find that little strand of what I'm looking for, I'll make him regret ever crossing me. Update number 2. Hey guys, you probably thought I wasn't coming back. I know it's been a while since I've been here, but I've got good news. Quite a few things have transpired. For one, I found a great amount of very useful information on my dear ex-husband. See, my ex, he worked at a big company, and over the last decade, he's been steadily rising up the ladder just to earn top of his company. In fact, he was dubbed as one of the fastest growing employers there. I was honestly shocked just to know this when I first found out. but I just attributed it to his late evenings at the office, and this is why. Now I knew those late evenings weren't actually at the office. He was actually cheating all those times with any random girl that caught his attention. Still, that leaves the question of how is he growing so fast if he isn't that exceptional of a worker that I thought he was? Turns out, he had been maliciously sabotaging his competitors at the company. Literally, whether it's stealing a project idea or using his contacts to swoop in like a hawk. And just when the employee was about to be noticed and take over, effectively earning him credit for work he never did. Or just to straight up take projects and having those under him do all the work. Then he'll come through and do these little edits on top of it and claim that he did everything himself. This tactic, yeah, it's cunning, and quite deceitful as it's the only reason he was able to climb to the top so fast. Yet, in doing so, he stepped on a lot of toes. I had a lot of proof from files that I found on his laptop while sneaking around at his office at home. They were pretty well hidden, and if I hadn't been looking hard, I would not find them, so I guess that's why he wasn't that worried that they're still here. Plus, he probably thought that even if I did find them, I'd be so much of a coward to do anything. Anyways, after I compiled all this information, I contacted a few of the people involved who I knew were fired from the company, enabling my ex to steal their work. It was a hassle, but hey, I got them to all attend lunch with me at a diner. Starting the conversation and getting them interested wasn't very hard, because once they learned that I was Jake's ex-wife, and that I was investigating what he had done to them at the company just to get a bit of revenge, they were more than happy to provide me with everything. All of which I recorded in different ways to bring home after lunch. I didn't know just how I was gonna expose him as the cunning, deceitful jerk he was just yet, but I was still preparing. I knew the company would be having this really big event in a few weeks though, so I hoped to figure something out by then, as what better way to expose that little weasel than before the people he's been deceiving. Also, another little bit of good news. The specialist contacted me this morning and he said the phone and laptop could be picked up early tomorrow, so guess what? I'm really looking forward to what I find. I'm going to update you all, and I'm grateful for your following support. It's really helped me cope with all this. Update number 3. Hi. So, where do I begin? I honestly want to cry so bad while I write this, but I'll try to hold it together. So I received the phone and the laptop a few hours ago, and while I did open them up and find some gritty information, I also found something that completely broke me. I found out. My best friend of 7 years, Lily, well, she's very deeply involved in ruining my marriage. On the laptop, I found bank transactions to her, and on the phone, I found text messages. Videos, voice notes, whatever else could be sent through a phone, where my ex-husband and Lily have been in constant contact for 4 years. Now, for the first 2 years, they seemed a bit innocent. She was almost like any normal friend checking in or looking for me through him. But after that, things seemed to change. It seemed that the first time was when I had my first all-out argument with my ex, and I also ended up blowing up on Lily. At the time, I just lost my father a few months back, and I just really wasn't coping well. I'd gained a little weight, and I just wasn't able to do what I needed as a wife. And well before you knew it, argument started, and I was hurting and just not in the right headspace. And instead of being an understanding and compassionate husband, Jake had been very cold and callous towards me, insisting that I just get over it, and saying how I was wasting my life away. At the time, I was hurt, and I thought he was right, but I didn't react the way he wanted me to, and we argued. Looking back, I knew that my reaction was normal, and he was just an a-hole jerk. I also realized that was the first sign of his true colors. Anyways, We argued, and when I went to Lily for comfort, her reaction was similar to his, and so I had an argument with her too. I ended up spending the night at a hotel, and that's the first time they had an independent conversation. From there, the friendship between them clearly grew, and I realized it was also from that point on that my marriage got worse. Still, it wasn't the affair that hurt, it was the fact that Lily began to tell him lies and paint seeds of doubt within him. I realized that whenever she did that, it was around the same time we would argue, we would fight, and I realized through their messages that she basically sabotaged my marriage, until they eventually began having a full-blown affair in the past year. Funnily, it was around that time she starts dating Simon, who was Jake's best friend. From the messages, it was all a cover-up for their own activities, as it would make it easier to explain why they were together often, especially at all functions. All those double dates were never meant for bonding, it was all meant for them to spend more time together. Still, I hurt a lot just reading those messages because I saw the journey that my ex-husband took that was falling out of love with me and falling in love with another woman who deceived him and me. Since my divorce from Jake, I'd yet to tell Lily because I was worried about the effect it would have on our relationship with Simon. Well, I was worried about the wrong thing, and not telling her was a good thing. As I'm sure if I had informed her, I would not have learned all that I did and to have revenge. In fact, she probably would have talked me out of my anger that I had towards Jake. It's really funny, and it's sad in a way, and messed up in a way, as I really had no one but myself to trust. Still, after learning all that, I decided that I would let Simon in on my plans, as he would be really useful. Since I knew he had a genuine feelings for Lily, and I knew he would be just as hurt as I was by Jake's and her betrayal, meaning we have a common goal of an enemy. Still, that's for later on, but the only saving grace in all this that makes it a bit easier to continue towards my goal of revenge is that on the laptop I found a little secret of my dear ex-husband. Guess what it is? Turns out, while he had been plotting to leave me penniless, he had created a bank account under a fake name and began stashing away most of his paychecks on it, his plan being if I tried to fight him in court for half of his assets during the divorce, then if the judge ruled in my favor, he would just plead bankruptcy, which meant I'd have nothing, and to get half of zero is still zero. Then once it blew over, he would just have the cash in storage to set himself up nice with his new little pretty mistress while leaving me to suffer. Sadly for him, that wasn't going to happen because once I found it today, I immediately went to work draining it. I took every single penny, nickel, dime, quarter, half quarter, you name it, I took it. I showed him that the true regret feels like this for what he did to me, and I can just imagine how he'll react when he learns that the one who'd been left penniless was in fact him. As a protective measure to make sure it could not be traced back to me, or at least make it hard to trace, I changed the details in the account and screwed it up so badly that even if he went directly to the bank, they'd simply be unable to help him for a few months. Plus, even if they did, they'd likely discover he was avoiding taxes with a fake name. So, I doubt he would want to tie himself up, huh? I'll be having the meetup with Simon tomorrow, so once that happens, I'll update you guys further, as I honestly can already smell victory in the air. Jake was gonna wish that he never, ever met me. And Lily, well, she's gonna wish she had been a good friend. Update number 4. So, I met with Simon. As always, he was a sweetheart. We talked normally for a while before I informed him of the divorce. He was shocked, which showed me that he was just as clueless as I was. I'd informed him about what I learned over the last few weeks, and to say he was shocked would be an understatement. The hardest thing of everything to tell him, though, was about Lily and Jake's affair. He didn't believe me at first, but once I got down to the nitty-gritty, it was the proof I gave him. I had to comfort him. As it turned out, he was planning to propose to Lily at the big party Jake's company was hosting, as he always worked for the same company. Hearing that made me sad, but also happy, as it meant I had not only saved Simon from maybe the worst decision of his life, but I also had a way to expose Jake's deceit before every one of his victims. I told Simon about what Jake was doing at the company, and he was shocked, as he hadn't noticed, but once I started listing off incident after incident the former employees had mentioned, recognition immediately came to him. He agreed to help expose Jake at the party. Luckily, he was in charge of the team that would do the visual shows, and so we planned to make a slideshow. We also did some more stalking. We managed to follow the two little lovebirds to a hotel and caught them in the act. We didn't even make it known, but once we had a few pictures, it was easy peasy lemon squeezy. So, wish me luck for the party, as now I'm really high-strung on excitement towards the downfall of my ex-husband. Update number 5. Hey guys, so the party was spectacular. Oh lord, I'm buzzing with excitement right now. You should have seen his face when I exposed him. So, me and Simon had shown up at the party as a couple. Now, no, we aren't dating, but he had me attend as his +1. The curiosity on everybody's face when they saw us together was clear, as I knew they were expecting me to come with my husband, not his best friend. Anyways, I'd noticed Jake and Lily glaring at us from across the room, but we ignored them. I didn't try to talk with Lily, as I knew I may have slapped the life out of her for what she did to me, so I avoided her. Once the party got going and everything went on, it was soon time for the slideshow, and I was in the front row. The most amusing part was, Jake was the one responsible for the first opening visual. But what they all expected to appear wasn't what happened. Instead, it was all the files and pictures and proof on top of, proof of him stealing others' work. The room was filled with many reactions, shock being the strongest, and the way his face paled when recordings of his voice came from the speakers of him saying less than pleasant things to employees who worked underneath him was so satisfying. The chaos that ensued when the images of him and Lily in very compromising positions created a domino effect. By the time the night was complete, Jake had been arrested and taken to jail, while Lily was in the hospital because of how many times she fainted. It was so satisfying watching their lives just fall apart. Simon also shared that joy with me, which made me happy, as I thought that he wholeheartedly deserved better. Well, let's see how things progress from here. I think whatever happened from there on out, I would be happy. Final update, posted by OP. Hey guys, I know it's been a few months since my last update, so this is the final. But first, thank you for the support and love. You don't know just how much it helped me in this whole thing. There were too many times when all I wanted to do was give up and lay in bed and just weep, but I didn't. It's been a few months since the party, and Jake got sued. He was mercilessly attacked from all ends, from his employers to his employees, and the people who he gotten fired for stealing their work. It was watching a piranha feeding frenzy, and he was the fresh meat. Within the first month, he had run bankrupt from legal fees and other things. That was the moment he had turned to his stash, only to find it gone, and to make it even more fun, I chose the exact time to finalize our divorce in court. I got nothing but the house, and I was happy. It took a few months to get into his bank account and found out that I drained it, so he contacted me about it, cursing me up a storm, and a bunch of other things, which was highly amusing to me and Simon. I only mocked him because he had no way of proving I was in fact the one gone with his stash. While the case got settled, eventually he still ended up out of a job and a ruined reputation. I also learned that his parents had disowned him and that the same happened to Lily. They'd left the city a while after everything was sorted, and I kinda hoped they'd fall apart after all that as a final piece to satisfy my revenge, but I saw on Lily's social media they got married. It stung as the betrayal was still fresh, but I'm learning to cope. I'm recovering, and I'm taking myself towards my own little journey of self-healing. I deserve it. Most of all, I'm learning to find peace in being alone.
Man, I felt bad for Simon in this story. I mean, wow. What a lot to take in, finding out what was happening with your girlfriend Lily, and then all the stuff OP went through. I'm just glad. At the end of the story, they were able to get a bit of revenge. So guys, let me know your thoughts on this. Drop your comments down below. Maybe you've been in a position like Simon or somebody and you just have something you want to share. Drop it in the comment section down below. My name's Mr. Reddito. I animate stories every single day. So stop on by, see what story we're doing for the day. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss an update. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.